Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the podcast Strikes Back. My name is George and you're listening to the weekly movie show with the boys Connor.
Hello.
Benny.
Hello there.
Really stalled on that one right there. Guys, thank you so much for tuning in for another week of movie antics. Do we have a show for you? Oh boy, very Star Wars heavy show this week. We of course have to talk about the Mandalorian trailer, which dropped earlier today, about 6 hours ago. That's going to be fun. We've also got some news about Game of Thrones creators or creative chiefs.
Showrunners, not creators.
David Benioff and D.B. Weiss. We have some updates there. Some interesting developments there. Plus also, we're going to be talking about Watchmen episode 2 later on in the episode after Question of the Week, so hang around for that. And if you want to skip to any areas, just head to the annotations. This is going to be a monster episode, but as we always like to do before we get into the news, the trailers, everything else, let's catch up on what everyone's been watching. Connor.
All right. So I started by watching American Made, which is a Tom Cruise film, true story about a guy that flies planes that is recruited by the CIA to run drugs, guns, people, and just about everything from America to South America during the time of the Cold War. And I think it came out, 3 years ago? Do you know the one I'm talking about?
Negative.
Okay, yeah.
Simultaneous
it
answer.
kind of came out and left without too much of a scene. Like, I don't remember anyone really talking about it that much.
Everyone just kind of ignores Tom Cruise.
Yeah, Mission Impossible was
if his movies
success at all.
are pretty good. Well, that's a big franchise, but I mean, when a pretty good Tom Cruise movie comes out that no one can really make fun of, they just ignore it. Like when The Mummy comes along, people take notice.
But yeah, so I ended up watching it, even if it was a little bit late. And look, I actually quite enjoyed this film.
It's good.
I feel like biographies or movies about real events, they kind of live on this knife's edge where I think it's really hard to make a story out of something that happens over several years. Most movies are kind of well contained to within a couple of days or even a couple of hours, depending on the type of film it is. And so I feel like a lot of films might stumble, and you get a lot of that with biopics. But I thought this one maintained a level of urgency and a level of kind of intrigue and interest. It was more of one of those things where you just can't believe that these things are happening to this person, and they seem so unbelievable. And I think one of the things that makes it that much more entertaining is knowing that it's true, because it's so utterly ridiculous.
It's a crazy story. It was stuff that was like declassified or something by the CIA, wasn't it? Like years after the fact.
Many years. And it kind of details how this was the CIA's go-to guy for getting guns and all that down to the what was meant to be the Nicaraguan. How do you say that?
You were so close that you should have just.
I should have just plowed forward. Rebel militia, and instead took those guns to the Median cartel, and then was like shipping coke like everywhere, and just made an absolute shit ton of money in the process.
I was about to point out how good some of the stunt flying is in the movie. Then I remember like 1 or 2 stunt pilots died during the making of it.
Did they really? Like, not surprising.
Yeah, it's because it's really extreme stuff. Yeah. It's like,
it's actually quite surprising how many stunt people die or are seriously injured on these films.
Article came out today. I was reading of the stunt woman on stunt man on Deadpool 2 who died,
motorcyclist,
and the producers evidently told her and instructed her to not wear a helmet for the stunts, and that's all unraveled. And it was her first movie. I might be completely wrong, and one of the first stunts of the movie. I mean, it's just such a tragedy. But it happens more often than you'd like to know, and they've got to keep that stuff under wraps.
Well, it's not good press, really.
It's not good press. It's not good press, exactly.
Yeah. Anyway, so watch that. Cool film if you like kind of true story, And yeah, the intrigue is kept by just this kind of like, just this disbelief that this is real. I also watched a bit more Community, but we won't talk about that.
Not done yet? Or are you done?
I'm slugging through the last of it. It's become such a chore.
You're in season 6?
Damn.
Honestly, yeah. And my fiance just looks at me and goes like, "Do we just want to quit?" Like, and I can't because I'm so close. I'm like, I need to finally
That's
finish.
why you should have quit in season 3.
I know.
Masochist.
But, and this is a nice little roll on to you, Ben. I have been just going through Letterkenny. So I watched the first 2 seasons last week, and I think I'm nearly done apart from the
specials.
So I'm in season 7 now.
Yeah, so that segues nicely into me. This does not happen often, but I took one of your recommendations, Connor. You mentioned last week that you were watching the Canadian sitcom Letterkenny. There's no story to it. It's just a bunch of guys in a very small Canadian town, and it's extremely Canadian. Canada. Just does not stop. And you showed me like the first scene of the first episode, and within 30 seconds, I was like, all right, I turn it off. I'm ready to watch this show. And now I'm just about to finish season 5.
You guys scare me.
You did 5
You guys
seasons.
fucking terrify me, man.
Yeah. So they're like 6-7 episode seasons. But yeah, I've been mainlining it. It is so watchable. I don't want to oversell it, but you undersold it.
I know. Well, I have to.
It is poetry. Honest to God, I'm going to sound insane here, but I would compare it to Shakespeare in how beautiful and lyrical it is and how little of it I understand.
It's a bit like that. And that's kind of why I undersold it, because if I told you that there is this kind of like Canadian kind of hick, rural sitcom thing that is as beautifully written as maybe
it's literal poetry.
Yeah, you'd been like, all right, well, fuck off.
Well, I kind of was like that already, but then you showed me the show.
Yeah.
By poetry, do you mean cutting out any space between dialogue between two people?
No, I mean it's the most well-written comedy.
Like,
it's the most well-written comedy dialogue I think I've ever seen in my life.
Right.
And they are so
it's literal
diverse.
poetry.
Pipe.
It is so diverse.
You guys
in the way that
love that. Well, who's those other guys you love? They got the podcast.
Oh, Jake and Amir.
And it's that same really fast, really intense.
It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. Similar.
I find that this just doesn't quite work for me.
Some people just can't keep up, huh?
Yep.
This is like
leave me back here. I'm a fucking tortoise.
I would almost say that this is
Back
more
in my
diverse than Jake and Amir, or it's a very different kind of thing. Because
all that I mean is purely on that really fast, action-packed dialogue going back and forth. And it's not bantery kind of like that Judd Apatow style. It's that really fast.
In fact, I'd say it's more bantery than anything. I mean, that's the whole premise of it.
But it feels very sort of scripted and like going back and forth. The Judd Apatow style is like kind of like it's ad lib and
like they speak in a way that would be impossible for humans to speak in, which is part of where the
comedy
not
is.
entirely joking comparison to Shakespeare is. Like it's clearly written dialogue and it's beautifully written. So
that style, like I roll the dice. You guys love it, and that makes me hate it more.
I can tell.
So,
George, you've been talking down the show a lot for someone who hasn't watched it. I just want to agree with Connor for a bit here and say the show is absolutely amazing. There's a reason I just watched 5 seasons in a week. And I don't think anyone's really ever heard of it necessarily. So if you can track
Certainly
it down,
not in Australia.
If you can track it down and you think, I don't know, you're looking for just a new comedy that you're going to get really hooked into, look up Letterkenny.
I'm going to derail this.
Love it to bits.
It is good. And it is dangerously addictive in the sense that you'll start using their mannerisms and their sayings.
Pitter patter, let's get at her.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy. Like, I have to stop myself.
I do not want to stop myself. As soon as I finish this, I'm going to start again because I think it might be the most rewatchable thing I've ever seen. Partially because I'm only following half of it because it's so fast. And I just want to watch it until I am it.
All right, here's the ultimate test. How many episodes per season?
6 or 7.
Fuck, this might go over the line.
And it's like, what, 20, 25 minutes per episode?
Yeah.
I like it.
It is super...
Flies by.
BBC style, baby.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So it honestly doesn't overstay its welcome. It's a little bit light on plot in terms of like there's enough to keep your interest and there's an arc over the 6 seasons, but it feels very kind of...
It's not really about that.
It's not. It's not really. It's about these kind of little situations that crop up in these.
I'm not trying to upset you guys with the fast dialogue thing, all right?
Well, you know what,
you guys
George,
look a little bit upset. You know,
speak a bit faster, Georgie. it's
Benny,
also
what do you got up next, man?
wait, whoa. Oh, too much.
What do you got up next in your?
I needed a Canadian accent. I also watched In the Spirit of Halloween, which is not really a thing in Australia, but Netflix's new scary movie Eli, which every Netflix horror movie that comes out, you always see that stupid article on Facebook. It's like, oh, people can't get through this one. It's too scary. And of course, I completely ignored that and just watched the movie, which is getting kind of middling reviews. And sure enough, it was just sort of fine. It was about like a boy who, like a bubble boy, can't go outside because the air will burn him alive, who has to go to this like institute where they're going to fix him, but it's like a haunted manor. And I
watched the trailer for that. The trailer was intense.
Yeah. The movie does have its moments, definitely, and it certainly veers off in the last 20 minutes or so into something very different than a lot of these other haunted house movies. It really gets a lot of points for absolutely swinging for the fences.
Mm-hmm.
I don't not recommend it if you're looking for just kind of a quick, scary little
I was
thing.
going to chuck it on.
Yeah, give it a go.
And I have, I feel like a broken record at this point, but I think that's what Netflix is perfect for. Putting out content that is not many of their content is going to like really blow your mind. They do have those every once in a while, like, you know, Haunting of Hill House as an example. But I mean, they are really consistent at putting out content that is like a good, you know, Friday night film. If you're not,
you sound like a broken record. Why do you guys undervalue Friday nights so much? You're always saying, "Oh, yeah, it's all right for a Friday night." Friday night is important prime time. All right, I'm not watching
Friday
anything.
Night.
Yeah, Friday's like dumb fun.
If I would watch a movie on Friday, which I wouldn't, for the record, it would have to be a goddamn masterpiece. Anyway, we value our time.
I'm fairly
in different
boring.
ways.
Like I can't. By the time Friday rolls around and someone's like, "Do you want to go out?" I was like, "Please no, just let me."
No, I have this movie I really need to watch.
Yeah, let me.
This 5 out of 10 Netflix film.
Fall asleep on the couch and. Yeah.
Anyway, that was me.
Well.
Nice. I have literally not watched anything, including Watchmen. So I'm gonna have to leave. I'm gonna have to leave because I'm not getting anything spoiled.
Absolutely.
So
you fool.
Yeah. Listen, we'll talk about it some other time.
Can I take your place then?
Definitely.
Okay,
Definitely.
so
You're on the team.
I didn't mention last time, I also watched Gemini Man, which
you did talk about it last week, didn't you?
Connor, you have seen, not on the show.
Oh, okay.
That's right. We talk outside of the show.
We did.
That one time. Yeah. So, Connor, you saw it in HFR, Super 3D.
Yeah.
They spit in your face.
As it was meant to be seen.
Supposedly, yeah. And I saw it as a regular film, 24 frames a second, in very comfy seats, because my usual cinema did not take it for a very good reason, evidently, because that movie bombed. I not much to say about this movie. I actually didn't mind it too much. I thought it was kind of okay. Yeah. Some of the direction was really strong, some of the action direction. And CGI Will Smith, at best, looked pretty darn good when he was kind of stoically standing there, and at worst looked really awful, most notably in one scene towards the back of the movie.
I heard about that.
Yeah, he's just an absolute cartoon character. But
that was bizarre. Like, it
was kind of great.
It went, and that really threw me for a loop because the quality on it was so far removed. Like, I mean, at worst, you were like, ooh.
At worst, it was Uncanny Valley. It didn't feel like a bad effect.
Exactly, right? You're like, this is still impressive. Like, I still was, you know.
And the performance kind of sold it enough.
Yeah. You know, but I wasn't going like, oh, this is some really wonky, like someone fucked up here. I was like, they're pushing technology to where it can go now.
Yeah, I've heard.
Whereas that one scene at the end was like, who the fuck dropped the ball on this?
I've heard that's PS4 level graphics in that particular scene.
The one that we're talking, like the bad one that we're talking about?
Yeah.
Oh, not even. Like,
just awful.
1994.
Yeah, it's not about the amount of polygons or something it's in it. It's the execution. It just looks really, really off.
Yeah. But that kind of like cutscene of you know.
You don't have a PS4. The cutscenes are really good now, man.
Yeah, I don't know how you make that comparison.
Somebody told me that it looks like one of those sort of animatic 3D, you know, cut sequences where they do the mocap and it kind of always looks a bit off Mass Effect
something's
or whatever.
not connecting.
Doesn't quite work.
Yeah, which is really
comparable to something like that.
Such a I was going to say such a ball drop. they really dropped the ball, I guess, because
it doesn't quite work without the proper grammar in there.
Having that as the last thing you see of him in the movie on the way out, like that must have tanked through some of the reviews. Yeah.
There.
Yeah. Anyway, I really actually didn't mind the movie. It was a very kind of small, low stakes, very 90s action thriller.
Do you think I'll enjoy it?
I think you'll like it. Yeah.
Hell yeah.
When you chuck it on Netflix.
And as I said, like it's good action. Will Smith is good in it. But yeah,
it's no iRobot, baby.
Nothing ever will be.
Nope.
Shall we get on with the news?
Is
that everything, George? Is that
I was going to talk about something, but I can't be fucked.
All right.
What are we going to talk about? What do you? No.
We want to know now.
No.
All right, I'm happy to move on.
Even remember, Kane.
No, I was going to talk about just that mother director on I Am Mother on Corridor Crew.
Yes.
Yeah, you shouldn't have mentioned that.
I just thought that whole episode was really interesting.
Yeah, so Corridor Crew, these YouTube guys, special effects house that we've been mentioning a few times lately, they're blowing up on YouTube. I'm sure we don't need to tell anyone about them. But
really doing them a favor.
They had the you're on your boys. They had the Australian director of I Am Mother on recently to kind of do the opposite of what they normally do and work out which effects were CGI and which were practical. But because of this movie, the practical effects are so accomplished that you just kind of assume they're CGI because of how good it looks.
Yeah, and the most fascinating element of it was him picking apart the scenes, explaining what was real, what wasn't real, and also the most interesting part of it came down to storytelling, where there's a few sequences in the film with this robot interacting with this baby, this toddler, and he sort of said creative choices or different takes were used for different reasons, and sometimes the baby got a better performance out of the baby with the mother in the scenes, the real mum, the baby's real mum in the scene. So they used CG to sort of cover up her hand and whatnot and replace her hand, and in other scenarios they actually got a better performance with the practical robot. So it was just fascinating that there's so many variables on a film set that you don't think about. You think, oh, why do they do it this way to execute? Well, there's hurdles, there's challenges on set.
So many little bits and pieces that contribute to an above average movie and something that doesn't make the cut.
I really enjoyed.
It's just something that's not really talked about a lot.
I love the one at the very end where the guy basically ran around naked because that was the best way to get lighting and shading, because it was a dark scene, and they figured if they were in the mocap suit or the general suit that they wore to do that they just wouldn't see him, and so it was a bit useless. I was like, fuck, that's...
Makes some amazing behind the scenes footage.
I can't remember who wrote this or who it was about, but they were talking about filmmaking as purely problem solving, and I think it was as like a defense for a film that bombed or something. Is really going to bother me now. But the thesis of the whole thing was about how every day there are problems, and your job is to think about inventive ways on how to fix those problems. And it went some way to explaining why movies don't turn out the way that you might want them to turn out, or how things can get kind of out of control, or why, again, when you're watching a movie, you're like, why the fuck didn't they just do that? And he's like, it's just people on the day trying to figure out how are we going to fix this problem. I wish
in
I
a
could
high pressure situation. I started a little video production company earlier this year, and you book in the time with the client, and it's like you have 4 hours to get all your stuff. Otherwise, can we come back for an hour? Nah. The invoice is paid. You got to deliver on the goods. So the same with a $200 million movie.
Yeah.
Shit, man. This is like a freight train going, and as you said, kind of problem solving. Like, what happened? Who recently injured themselves on set, and they had to halt all production.
John Cho on Cowboy Bebop.
Yeah,
he broke his leg in what was described as a freak accident. Sounds terrifying. He's out for 9 months.
So what problem solving do you do there? Do we continue with John Cho, or do we replace him, or do we start the whole production?
Can you imagine how many schedules they would have to reorganize?
I mean, that's a major example, and there's also like, this daylight is coming through this scene in this way. Do we need extra lights or whatever?
There's a bunch of movies where you like, if you look at the commentary, they're talking about how we had to shoot from this angle because they were in a cast, or because they were limping or something like that. And it just kind of goes to show you, like, they're just trying to get by on that day, just being like, all right, how the fuck are we going to shoot this scene? How are we going to get it?
ticking a
get to the end.
box. Ticking a box.
I always say, and I genuinely believe, it's amazing that any movies are good at all.
It
Oh
is.
yeah,
So
right.
let's be
And
thankful
it's
for
got to
them.
be at least part accident.
Alrighty, on to the news.
News time.
The world is in mourning. We received some very devastating news today. Game of Thrones, David Benioff and D.B. Weiss have walked away from their deal with Disney's Lucasfilm to launch a feature film trilogy in 2022. So we're not getting our Game of Thrones Star Wars movies.
This is interesting because it's saying that Benioff and Weiss walked away as if they were like, nah, I don't think that we want our names attached to a
inked
Star
a
Wars.
massive deal with Netflix.
Yeah, the specific reason cited is that they have too much work that they're doing with Netflix on that, 9-figure deal that they got, and they don't have the time to dedicate to Star Wars. 100% Lucasfilm was like, we got to shut this down. Your names are literal poison at this point.
I think there was a number of factors. This decision was probably made 6 months to a year ago. How long ago did that Netflix news come out? That they
Couple months.
They got some huge dollars there.
Yeah.
I mean, it's an obvious choice from every angle, and I think we called it. Well, we can go back to the episode. This is an artifact, but I think we did call it. I certainly I seem unsurprised by this news.
I think at one point or another we have called all the Star Wars properties as being
every scenario
very, very close to the chopping block.
I think we forget what we say,
The
we call everything.
which means that we're always right.
Absolutely.
Every option was
and there's no way to
mentioned
prove
at
it
least
wrong.
But I do think that to kind of double down on what I've just said is that every property right now that isn't actually currently in production and at least halfway through production, I'd say, is inches away from being on the chopping block. I would not be wildly shocked if we never got this Obi Wan series that we've been promised.
No, I think that's coming.
Well, I mean, I would have told you that Solo was they would never fire directors, 2 weeks out from them finishing the film. But they did. I think that the franchise in general is kind of at that point where Kathleen Kennedy is sitting there with like a hatchet and being like, I'm fucking crazy. I'll do it. I swear to God.
No, I'm not sure. I think they've done a lot of learning. Solo didn't work out. Rogue One might have cluttered up the movie schedule to be too overcrowded. Now they're going for a much more, seemingly so, much lower volume of movies released cinematically, and a much higher volume of TV shows, Disney Plus content. And I think that was always probably the better way to go. The movies are the cinematic events that come out every 5-10 years and have that, new, shiny, what the fuck's going to happen in this trilogy feeling.
Yeah, as of today, don't we only have one official Star Wars movie in the pipeline after Episode 9? Which is the Rian Johnson.
Yeah,
well,
and
isn't
that's
Jon Favreau
very on the rocks.
No. Isn't Jon Favreau attached to a trilogy?
Kevin Feige.
Oh yeah, and Feige's got something as well. So,
but
theory they could be the same thing.
Does Jon Favreau have
a Star Wars movie?
Yeah,
I'm not sure.
Or a trilogy.
No, I think he could.
The Mandalorian.
I mean, every third person in Hollywood seems to have a trilogy at this rate.
They're all just claiming.
Because I know that Rian Johnson had a property. I thought that Jon Favreau, or maybe I was thinking of Kevin Feige.
I think maybe Kevin Feige. It could have been Favreau, but I can't seem to remember that. However, from recent interviews that I've seen with Rian Johnson, he's been playing very, very coy on whether or not he will be involved. Oh, we'll see what happens with Lucasfilm.
But that's my point,
that's
right?
possibly he's going to be
I think everything's on the chopping block. I think
they're going to clear house of everything.
Yeah,
other than Feige, I think Feige's going to be the only one. I don't. What is the upside for Disney to do a film with Rian Johnson? I love Rian Johnson.
Make a good movie.
Knives Out looks awesome, but look at all the bad press of Last Jedi. He's in terms of Rian Johnson's association with Star Wars. I wouldn't blame Lucasfilm for saying see you later, because from a business sense, not a filmmaking sense, because I love The Last Jedi, but from a business sense, I would understand.
I think, though, that maybe they've given up D.B. Benioff and Weiss as like the sacrificial lamb here, though, because I feel like they actually managed to have a worse reputation than Rian Johnson.
Definitely.
After Game of Thrones, the final season.
And Knives Out is going to be from all you know,
Yeah.
it's looking to be a great film.
And critically and financially, Last Jedi did well enough, and I think there are enough it was mixed opinion enough. Like it wasn't an overwhelmingly negative opinion overall.
1.3 billion at the
film.
box office. I totally agree with that.
So I think it was kind of a blessing that Game of Thrones that season happened. Remember, they only announced that they were working with them in like Feb, just before that season came out. They must have been ever since then just kicking themselves.
Can you imagine walking out of the deal and being like, "We got the Game of Thrones guys to Star Wars,"
and they would have been like, "We got Star Wars. We're talentless. How did we do that?" They just had a thing recently. Actually, no, they just had a thing recently about. It's kind of their first public speaking about Game of Thrones, I think, at a film festival in Austin. Yeah. And the stuff they were saying is like, man, these guys had no idea what they were doing. They were just making this up as they went along, relying on everyone else to kind of lift it up.
Can you...
Also, one of them wrote Gemini Man, which, man, of the few good things about that movie, the script is not one of them.
Can you tell me a little bit more about what they were saying at this festival? Like...
Just saying that, like, just literally saying, like, that they didn't know what they were doing. Like,
right.
That they were scared and unprepared.
Someone was live tweet sharing, live tweeting.
Yeah, and they were doing it in a very, like, they were probably coloring it to sound worse than it was, but the direct quotes were, like, pretty, like, ooh.
Yeah.
Boys.
I'm looking forward to delving into that.
I do think that people get a little bit hyperbolic.
I think everything I've ever heard them say publicly about the way they work really has made me cringe. Like, wow, they do sound like they kind of suck. And everything that they've had a really clear creative hand in, I've kind of been like, yeah, no good.
I'm
very glad to have them off this
approach and say, hey, there's some reason you can't get to that level without having some kind of system or talent. So maybe the system is surround yourself with the best and rely on a great team. Hey, that's
get a really good
strategy.
book series.
That's a really good strategy. But I am personally on Star Wars news. I'm on a little bit of a Star Wars high, and this is only taking me to new levels.
It's so weird when you get like anti-news that makes you happy about a series. That doesn't happen too often.
It's happened today though, so embrace the feeling, baby. Embrace the feeling. We got more Star Wars news.
Yep. Next up, the next one in the can, Star Wars Rise of Skywalker is tracking for a huge opening weekend, but it is the lowest of the new trilogy of films. So a lot of mixed messages coming out of this one.
So last week, I believe we mentioned the fact that within the first hour of tickets going on pre-sale, that the Rise of Skywalker had eclipsed Endgame in pre-sales, sales.
Total pre-sales
on Fandango
in the first hour.
Okay, yeah. So
the comparable amount. Yeah.
All right, yeah.
Within the first hour.
Gotcha.
So that's pretty cool. But as a very small metric, when we're looking at the bigger picture here, and obviously the social media tracking and whatnot, you know, Rise of Skywalker is looking to be not as healthy as Force Awakens and The Last Jedi. And is this that surprising? No. I mean, look at the public discourse going on with Star Wars. It's all over the shit.
What are they doing?
I still think that it will make an ungodly amount of money, if nothing else, but that it is the finale of this 9-movie kind of...
And they're definitely going to play that up.
Mega thing.
Do you think they're going to do, like, are you talking like bigger money than The Last Jedi?
I believe so.
Yeah.
I mean, it has the kind of cultural hot ticket of being the final one, right? In the Skywalker journey. And I think that there's enough
they're pushing it that much. Like, do you think they're pushing
I don't think they have to,
much?
right? They don't have to. I mean, if you haven't heard of Star Wars and you don't know that this is the final one in the Skywalker trilogy, I mean,
it happens though, man.
Then you're what, 1 in 50?
I don't know. That's a mindset we're so far detached from. But there are the people out there who, if they don't see a poster on a bus, they don't know a movie's coming.
Like, I would literally, if I asked my colleagues at work, you know, what's going on with Star Wars, they'd be like, "What the hell is Star Wars?"
Who are you?
Do you know what I mean?
Get
like,
back to work.
The level of paying attention is at on a completely.
But they would know what
different.
Star Wars is.
Of course, I'm exaggerating a little bit, but like if I said, "Hey, have you guys seen the new trailer?" crickets.
Yeah.
Hey, are you guys pumped for The Last Skywalker? What's that all about?
I was going to say, like, my fiance
it's-
never watched a single Star Wars film in her life, but she knew the basic, like, beats, and she knew what it was about. And I was like, you can't escape that in popular culture.
Yeah, lightsabers, Darth Vader,
Exactly.
blah, blah, blah.
So, I mean, I think that, this
Definitely.
will have a base level of cultural impact
Of course.
that you cannot escape.
It's one of
and
the
I think
biggest brands in the world. But
Yeah.
but Solo, I mean, you know, Star Wars, we can't just rely on the IP.
Solo's
Yeah.
a bit different, though. Solo is
Solo
distinctly
is.
a side project.
It is, but it's still got the Star Wars label slapped on it. And they have to be careful here.
Yeah, I mean, that was the most recent Star Wars movie, and it performed so terribly.
Comparatively, yeah.
Like 400 million at the box office. That is abysmal.
On what would easily be a $400
That's
million budget.
abysmal.
My gut feeling says that this would do better than Last Jedi, worse than Force Awakens, because, like you said, Connor, it is the big finale, and I feel like there'd be enough people who, even if they didn't like The Last Jedi, would be like, no, but JJ's coming back from Force Awakens. This is maybe more like a
right, the
sequel
ship
to that
type thing, yeah.
But there's no way it's going to capture the huge feeling and the zeitgeist like Force Awakens did. I feel.
I'd agree with that.
Yep.
I think that's fair.
Force Awakens could potentially be the highest grossing Star Wars film we'll ever get.
This one's going to be the longest.
It is.
They just announced it's about 3 minutes longer than The Last Jedi, I think.
How
Really?
long was The
Only
Last
3
Jedi?
That's what I heard.
Okay, 152 minutes, 155 minutes, I think.
Mm.
40.
Yeah, 2 hours 30. That's good. That's good. We need that kind of time. We need that kind of runway.
For that one, not for that. I'm just
We
thinking
do.
about Last Jedi. That's a 2-hour film that was for what was it, 2.5 hours? So
2.5.
that's a 2-hour film that took 2.5 hours.
Canto bite, baby.
Just
See you
erase
later. We got some more news
Anyways,
from
yeah,
in the
let's move
Star
on.
Wars realm.
Yes. In sad
More.
news, Ewan Mcgregor, who we all thought we knew and loved, has been lying to us.
What?
Apparently, he's known about coming back for this Obi Wan project for 4 years now.
That's bullshit.
It's outrageous.
I thought he was for the people, man.
I
know.
know. I don't
Look,
believe it. I think
I
this
He's
is
for you know what he's for? He's for his wallet.
You know what I reckon this is?
clearly.
And I haven't read the article or anything. I did some headline skimming for this one. But what I reckon this is some person within the Star Wars scaffold has been like talking to McGregor and been like, kind of wink, wink, yeah, we'll get you that thing. And that's what he means by I've known that this is on for 4 years. I don't think that anyone has actually this hasn't been greenlit for 4 years.
I mean, he's been open about being okay to come back for the role. So I'm sure they've been in communication for ages
Yeah.
about it. But yeah, the project would have morphed so much over this time. There's no way it wasn't a movie like a year and a half ago.
And
that
he
they were
referenced
gonna
that. He referenced
Did he
that.
say that? Yeah.
He said this was once a movie and now it's a TV series, and I'm really happy that it's a TV series because we get to sort of look underneath the hood a bit more
So
and spend
what-
more time with the characters.
What is he been lying about then? Like, that's the part I don't get. This is like clickbait.
I was
at
just
its
kidding.
worst.
I was just kidding.
I just thought the headline. I wanted to bring this one up. The fact that he's
But I've seen that in
Really?
the headlines about it. Like I mean,
It's
you go to
hilarious.
this one.
it's just clickbait.
Yeah.
It's hilarious. But I am feeling very optimistic about this piece, and I'm feeling very optimistic about Star Wars in general because Mandalorian. You know, we're going to talk about the trailer a bit later, but you know, it's a little bit of a preview. I think that's looking pretty damn cool.
Do you want me to bring you back to reality?
And
It's because you're a sucker, George.
and
I will say this,
Let's see how Last Jedi, Rise of Skywalker turns out.
I actually didn't mention this in the what we watch section, but I did. I've been on a quest to have my fiance watch all of the Star Wars properties before
right.
Rise of Skywalker comes
Nice.
out. So we ended up going through Phantom Menace on the weekend.
Aha.
And I'll save my full kind of comments on that. Maybe we'll do it next week for what we watched. But I will say that is a bad film, and people that have mentioned about how that is so much better than The Last Jedi need to get your head screwed on straight. I mean, seriously, it's chalk and cheese. It's so different.
Now this is pod
Yeah, fuck me.
racing.
If you actually think that The Last Jedi is worse than Phantom Menace, then Jesus.
I think I mentioned this like 6 times on this podcast, but I'm really excited for us to do a retrospect episode.
Oh yeah, I 100%.
Once the Rise of Skywalker is all said and done, I'm really excited to.
I'm going
to
through
have
that
a
right
rewatch.
now. I've just gone through the original trilogy. We're making our way through the prequels now.
What's the likelihood? A score out of 10, 10 being the most likely, 1 being the least likely. Is the Rise of Skywalker going to improve the Phantom Menace for you? Even by 1% improvement.
Improve?
Yeah. Do you think there's like some little
what
detail?
avenue do you think that
some
they would
little
take?
detail, like when C-3PO is about to die, and he says, "Hey, remember how Anakin made me?"
There's a battle droid in that scene in the background.
Yeah.
No,
is-
look, I don't
is
think
there
because the story of the Phantom Menace has never been my issue, right? The beats have never been my issue. It's how it's executed.
Yeah, if
the entire issue.
You
the
passed
final,
the test.
if the Rises of Skywalkers can improve the acting
no.
in Phantom Menace,
It
then
can. It
then
can.
then maybe we'll talk.
The
yeah.
Rises of the Skywalker. You have been watching too much Letterkenny. No, I think that like if you take the prequels and you tell it as a story to someone,
It's dope.
that sounds awesome,
It's dope.
It's great,
right?
yeah.
Like, oh, cool.
Easy to see how that got greenlit.
It is seriously. It's the execution of how that is done that makes it such a fucking.
It's all Jake Lloyd's fault, and he deserved everything he got.
Oh my god,
Poor
man, that is
kid, man.
terrible.
Have you seen
I
some
know.
of the interviews?
His
It
life got
breaks
ruined.
My fucking heart,
Yeah.
man.
Well, he also developed schizophrenia.
Jesus.
Like, because I looked at it and I was because my fiance was asking like, oh, where is he now? Like, he got a role in the biggest franchise on the world, and I was like, he did like 1 film and then he dropped off the planet.
Child acting is 2% removed from child sacrifice.
Yeah.
It really is
It's
just
pretty
throwing them
damn
out
close.
into a big hole.
Which is why I think everyone's like so quietly impressed, or not even quietly, quite loudly impressed with kids that come out of that machine, like, and aren't completely fucked up.
Yeah.
I will
fucking
say
well
I am
done.
impressed with the Kardashians and the Jenners.
What?
I am very impressed with the amount of commitments and whatnot and how messed up they could be. They actually
Not many scandals or anything. It's pretty.
they keep it
it's
together.
like a well-oiled machine.
They
yeah.
keep it together. It's very impressive. Maybe
Maybe that's got some good
very
fixes.
impressive.
What am I what? Sorry?
You don't agree?
The Kardashians.
You don't agree that they're good
They
business
literally
people?
got their fame out of
Do you know how easy it is
controversy
to? Do you know? Look at Paris Hilton.
Yeah,
She
like
has
they've,
not
they've,
maintained a career.
they've still got it. They're still
at the top. How do you maintain that kind of level that you can?
but I mean the way that I mean I don't want to get into
that
too
cultural
much of this,
relevance.
but the cultural relevance is about breeding. Like they have a really good way of being able to spin their controversy, but make absolutely no mistake, their brand is built on the whole show. I've watched about 20 minutes of one, and it's purely about controversy and conflict. Like it's terrible.
That's fine. They're gaming the system.
Yeah,
that's
it's
the
manufactured.
market.
Like, but
That's
let's
the lay of the
not
land.
pretend that they're not like they've somehow avoided controversy and well
I'm not
balanced
saying
people.
that. I'm saying
yeah,
that
like
they are very
you don't see
smart business people.
you don't see the Kim's mugshot showing up next to Lindsay Lohan.
Yeah,
for some
Much better than
exactly.
her
horrible-
sex
You
tape
don't
is out
see
there.
an Amanda Bynes.
Well, yeah, sex tape's not illegal.
They're playing the system, bro.
They've
just
got
don't
you,
see
buddy.
it.
They've got you.
They got you.
How did they got
They
me?
got you, man. They
That
got
20
you.
minutes
You're
you
the
watched.
one, like-
That 20
You're
minutes
You're
you
the one that
watched.
made the segue from having child actors come out like
Yeah,
you know,
because
not
because,
fucked up
because
to
look
somehow
at,
going
look
to
at
the
the Jenners.
Kardashians.
Look at the Jenner kids. They were like 12 or 0 when all you know.
you think
Kim
they're like
and stuff were peaking.
well adjusted, well balanced people?
I think that they are more well adjusted and they've kept on the top of their game for longer than a lot of other people have. You look at Lindsay
But see,
Lohan, Amanda
staying on the top of
Bynes.
your game and like being famous is not the same as well adjusted. I mean, fucking.
All I'm saying is they're good business people. They've stayed at the top, and they could be way more messed up. That's all I said. You know, we're not getting into semantics with your definitions on things like.
Yeah, we don't know their psychology. We can't delve into
Yeah.
that. We can only look at the surface level that we're shown of these people. It seems to be working out for them at this point, comparatively compared to Jake Lloyd.
who had schizophrenia and like.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
Maybe the next season of the Kardashians. I don't know if that show's still on, but it's like Jake Lloyd's just a character. Okay. Anyway,
Ratings went through the roof.
we get on to the Kardashians. We've never done that before.
Well, yeah, that's why it's so weird that it got brought up. I have no idea how you segued into that.
You decided to pick up on it as a problem.
Yeah, because it's so
a little
fucking weird
offhand.
that you segue to the Kardashians.
It's just a little offhand comment about child stars. Like, relax.
Sure, yeah, okay, sure.
Relax.
Sure.
It's okay, Connor. Everything's going to be fine, man.
Speaking of the Kardashians and Hollywood, here is a story from the Hollywood Reporter.
David Hasselhoff.
So we've got a little...
What's that?
I don't know.
I don't understand the reference.
We're hearing some scuttlebutt here that Netflix is planning to test varying play speeds. So the same way that you can play a podcast at 1.5 times speed, they would want to be doing that with their shows, apparently.
Now, I saw an Instagram stories from Kim Kardashian about this recently.
Yeah.
And
What does she have to say?
Whatever you say, I agree with, Kim. Like,
You're getting a weird fucking high from this.
I think this is inevitable. I don't necessarily love it. I've never listened to a podcast at 1.5 or 2 speed. I think it sounds really weird.
No.
I don't have a problem with it, but like in terms of voice versus audio and visual, you know, I don't necessarily agree with it. Is it inevitable? Yes. People have a problem with it? Yes.
Have you guys ever, because this is something you can essentially do now with a lot of things, you know, watch something on 1.2 times speed or something. Have you guys ever done this?
I think I'm
assuming this is how you get through as much as you do.
Yeah, no. I know you've been able to do it on YouTube for ages, and I've dicked around with it, but I don't think I've ever actually like watched something consistently on a higher speed. I may have tried a podcast once or twice at a higher speed, but
odd.
It is a bit strange, particularly if you're used to hearing something at a certain cadence. Jumping up to a even 1.5, it just feels off.
Too chipmunky.
Yeah. I'm getting older, and I drink alcohol like an Australian would. So my brain is just not what it used to be. Yeah. I can't follow things at 1 time speed most of the time.
Yeah.
I can't imagine people would be getting much out of this.
Is this the idea that, like, is the concept behind this that people want to get through more shows quicker?
I would definitely say so, yeah.
So on a podcast, I get that. That makes more sense to me because
I've always considered podcasts, no offense, guys, disposable. So I could see that.
Well, not even just disposable, but the way I listen to podcasts is often to get as much information into my brain as efficiently and quickly as possible.
By having Joe Rogan talk around topics ad nauseum.
Or like I have a lot of like news podcasts that I'll 10-minute podcasts of like sum up the news for the day or kind of go into an issue and explain it or any number of things. And I don't feel as though the cadence of someone's speech or how quickly they speak is as important in a podcast, typically speaking. Like there's a couple of podcasts that I probably wouldn't do that with, like, you know, Dan Harmon might be one because that's more of a performance piece and it's not really about relaying information. It's really about the timing and the comedy of it. But TV feels like a completely different medium because it's not necessarily about that, right? Unless you're watching a documentary, it's not just about getting information from A to B. It's very much about the craft of it. How do you put that information in front of someone? And the idea of going up to 1.5 feels a little bit more distracting or a little bit more... It feels a little bit like heresy. And I know that's, again, being quite hyperbolic about it, but like... that's
I
the
completely agree.
That's what it feels like.
You're under talking it. I'm a complete purist when it comes to this stuff. I don't even want to look at my phone when I'm watching something in a dark room on my giant TV.
Yes.
I won't watch something on my laptop. I just try and really focus on the thing I'm watching. The idea of watching it at a speed that wasn't intended is crazy to me. And people are allowed to have the right to do that, and I don't want to hear about it, all right? Because it'll make me angry.
But something interesting we used to do at the cinema back in the day when it was on celluloid was if there was a session and you were running behind, you could give the projectionist a nudge and basically say, hey, can you bump this up to like 26 frames a second as opposed to 24? And you would shave off 3 minutes of the film. And end up, or 25 frames a second or something, and then, you know, you would get back there. But that's a very marginal, you know, that's stretching 1% of the film or something. Yeah. If we're getting into 1.2, 1.5, 2 times, you know, we're losing a lot of nuances.
Yeah.
We're losing deep bass rumbling tones, you know, pauses. As you correctly said, Connor, there's just so many more nuances that can happen with
Can you imagine watching 2049? in 1.5 or 1.2 or whatever it is that they're going to offer. That would be weird, right?
And at the end of the day, with a podcast, it's just like as long as the voice, you can still understand it. You know, it doesn't really matter what speed you are listening to. It's just, is it audible or is it not audible?
Probably wouldn't want to listen to Ben's voice that much higher and squeakier, but...
No. It would be insane.
Not to mention my own.
You crazy
which would
bastard.
be equally as terrifying. But yeah, I mean, like you said, going up to like 25 or 26 frames per minute, or sorry, per second, to hit per minute, to shave off 1 or 2 minutes on a session time it's not noticeable. You're not going to notice a pitch change. You're not going to notice a speed change.
And it was always for a good reason, so we could clock off earlier.
Exactly.
It's not
a good reason for us.
Yeah. It's not what happened.
That is absolutely what happened.
I don't work there, man. I don't have to protect the integrity of the film, like that industry. But
you don't?
Not really.
It says in your contract.
But yeah, 1.2 is like a completely different ballpark range. So
nuts to this. I guess none of us really want to do that, huh?
No.
Balls up.
So all right. We don't agree with it. Do you think that people should have the option to do that?
Yes.
I would rather they didn't.
But do you think people should have the option?
Yes.
No, well...
Live your life how you want to, as long as it doesn't interfere with my shit.
Exactly. So I'd prefer they don't have the option to do things differently than I want them to.
So and I will give you a reason why they shouldn't. Because, and it's not a great reason, but it is a reason nonetheless, which is the slippery slope reason of how much control do we give viewers on the property that filmmakers make. So for example, if let's say Scorsese makes a film and puts it out there into the world, how easy should we be to make it? Sorry, that was almost English. How easy should the platform of Netflix or whoever it is that's making these decisions make it for people to chop and change and do weird things with the film? Like, how much should we be able to change it? And that speed is, make no mistake, changing the film. So if we then are able to, we talked about this a while back with Deadpool coming out with both an R-rated and a non-R-rated film. Are we going to start having films that come out with both? So when you go to Netflix, are like, do you want your R-rated? Do you want your M-rated? Do you want your PG? Do you want...
It's like airplane versions of like
Exactly,
heavily censored
right?
films. Like I have to pretend they don't exist because I hate that idea so much.
So how much control do we give the audience?
I mean, you could argue, is it a tool? Is it any different to rewind and fast forward, skipping ahead to chapters? But I guess you're consuming the material in a different way to intended. So then is it bad to watch a movie on your smartphone versus a cinema? So many variables in here. I just think like if people want it, like give it to them. I'll just never do it, nor will my household. If nobody who steps into my house,
no child of mine,
no child of mine, not even 1.1. Fuck that shit.
I'm just imagining like George coming home, seeing his wife like, watching something 1.5 and just being shocked like that, like finding another man type thing. Except it's
that's such a classic trope. Like in Dad's house, Dad has control of the telly. What he says goes.
I do
and
think
same with motion blur on the TV. None of that.
Absolutely.
Not allowing that.
I do think that there is some validity with the outrage from filmmakers specifically saying that's not how I wanted to watch it. Because even if, as you said, George, the watching it on a phone, it's still the same thing, right? It's still the same, art form essentially. It's either bigger or smaller, and I think that is an acceptable, variation to make on.
Boils my blood, brother.
Yeah,
can't handle that. I don't like that.
Have you seen that David Lynch iPhone ad?
No.
You think you've experienced the phone on your fucking telephone? Get real.
The phone on your telephone.
The film on your
film.
telephone.
Okay, yeah.
Oh, it's so good.
No, and I would agree with him. Like, I think if you're going to watch a film, like the only thing that I would watch on my phone in terms of films, which I don't watch,
2001: A Space Odyssey.
Yeah, exactly. Would
the only way to see it
would be something that I had already seen, and I am just like watching on the bus that I have no particular, heavy investment into.
Disgusting. I think at the end of the day, the main thing here is none of us should ever hear about each other's watching habits because
Well, none of us are
all
going to
over.
watch it at 1.5, so it doesn't matter.
But I don't want to know about any of this
Wait
stuff.
until somebody starts watching it on their watch.
I started watching
That's
The
when
Dark
everything
Knight on my
goes
phone
wrong.
the other day.
Oh yeah, George tells me he watches things on his phone on the bus or something. I'm like, I'm just gonna grin and bear that shit because I don't like it.
Just in time for this, man.
I need to maintain my friendship with you, so I'm going to pretend I
Absolutely,
didn't do
Two
yeah.
that.
things I've watched. Two things.
Live and let live.
Oh no, three.
Civil War, I know, was one of them.
No, it was
That's
the first
four then.
one. Breaking Bad, El Camino, the third one.
You watched El Camino on your
Let's
phone.
move on to the next segment.
You did a
of the
review on that
podcast.
thing. You watched that for the first time on your phone.
The end part, yeah.
You're sick.
The end part. Fuck yourself.
What time is it?
It's trailer time.
Yes.
All right. First up, we have The Mandalorian.
Mm-hmm.
This feels like pretty close after the last trailer came out. Maybe that's just me. There
it's
seems to
just
be
you.
more trailer or hype for this than there is for Rise of the Skywalkers almost.
Rise of Skywalker.
Rise of the Skywalkers. Irrespective of that, cool trailer.
Love the opening audio.
What's that dude's name? The guy that was doing the voiceover that's got the...
Oh, Werner Herzog.
Yeah.
God, he's just got such a hectic voice.
Bounty hunting is a complicated profession.
Really
I know.
interesting accent.
So good.
Yeah.
What a great get for the show.
I loved the dialogue around, the order has gone and was there something good that the Empire brought to the table?
Yeah, like the question, like, is it more peaceful now? Like,
Yeah.
clearly indicating
Which is
that
always
it's not.
always the case when you have any kind of revolution, which is that there's going to be this period of unrest, and I think that it's really interesting that they're going in and they're exploring that. There was a lot of questions when The Force Awakens came out, where people were kind of
Yes.
going like, "What? I mean, how did the First Order come out?
Why is
Like,
everything just the same
Yeah.
as
exactly,
before the last movie when they won the war? Like,
Yeah.
this is so much more narratively interesting and satisfying
Completely.
to see the consequences of that first trilogy.
And
I think
paralleling the way movies are made, the way characters are portrayed now compared to 30 years ago. It's a lot more complex. And that's what people want to see. And that's what we're seeing in this. We're getting the gray area.
Yeah,
we're not getting
yeah.
light and dark. We're getting something in between. And that's fascinating. That's fascinating to
Yeah.
me.
No, I think this. I mean, beyond that, the trailer showed a little bit more action, and even had some dialogue of the Mandalorian, which I swear it sounded so much like Nathan Fillion. It threw me a bit.
Mm.
What was his line? Cool. Yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah, got it.
Just really
Classic
interested.
catchphrase.
Yeah.
Every
Really
episode.
interested in the action of this. I will say one thing. There was a couple of scenes, particularly in space or where something was flying, that I got Star Trek vibes.
I am totally with you.
Right?
It looked like the first time I've ever seen Star Wars be like, wow, that looks composited on top of a helicopter drone shot.
Yeah, it was a bit strange, to be
I know
honest.
exactly what you mean, dude.
And I was trying to figure out how I felt about that because, I don't want to be one of those people that it's like, it doesn't feel like Star Wars and therefore can't be Star Wars. Because at this point, the universe is becoming large enough that we have to be able to accommodate for different styles.
And also,
in
yeah, the
filmmaking.
show's MO seems to be it doesn't feel like Star Wars.
Exactly, right?
In a
So,
different way.
there has to be that allowance. But then, it feels uncomfortable, those scenes, because I'm like, I
I
don't
just think it's not
understand.
executed as well as it normally is.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know what it is. I don't know whether it's just different and I don't like it, or whether it is just genuinely not up to the standard of what we've normally seen.
But other than that, the general production design, the color palette,
stellar,
it just looks fantastic.
Yeah.
This show better be great.
it has to
If
be.
this
right?
show's just good, I'm going to be so bummed.
Yeah.
I'm going to check out of Star Wars forever.
Look, I've
This is
had
the last kernel of hope.
apart from Community, I have had a ring or like a set of really good TV shows. I'm watching Watchmen. I'm watching Letterkenny. I feel like I only have room from now till like Christmas to consume really good content, and that's all I will accept.
That gleeful look is just contagious.
I'm so excited because, I just finished the second episode of Watchmen. Like, I'm really keen to talk about that with Ben, I was keen
thanks,
to,
man.
Well, I
No,
was keen.
thanks.
I was keen to talk about it with
Thanks
you,
a
but
lot, man.
you didn't. You didn't even have the ability to watch it on your
didn't
phone.
want me to.
Why didn't you watch
I
it on
know
your phone?
You wanted this.
You
to
could have.
happen.
I told him not to watch it on his phone.
Did you?
don't want him doing
fucking do
that
it.
shit.
Skip the review and
Yeah.
watch it properly. I was like, thank you, sir.
You
no
go away.
commitment,
You go
George.
away. Watch it, and we'll talk.
Yeah,
Get an
I will.
iPad. I don't know.
will.
Jeez. But yeah, I feel like we're in this kind of phase where if Mandalorian is really good, then I've got pretty much now until Christmas like sewed up.
Please call your grandma and tell her this. Like, grandma, this is good news. I've only got great content until Christmas.
My grandma would
content.
Just like call the cousins.
That
Call
would
her.
be such a weird
Tell the
conversation.
whole family like you're the good word, the good news.
Sorry, I'm excited for good TV. It'd be
just
really
being-
weird to
I'm just being an
express that
asshole.
on a podcast
Oh, no.
about movies and TV, wouldn't
Nerd.
it? Yeah. Clearly, I haven't picked the right medium for this kind of
Definitely not.
stuff.
We're
I'm
too
normally so
anti-establishment.
sorry,
We're too
I am normally
anti-establishment here.
so pessimistic about this kind of shit. And the one time,
I
the
know.
one fucking
I
time,
know.
George, that I express some level of excitement about what's happening in this world, and you have to tear me down.
Yeah,
We're gonna crush it. Doesn't look
You're
good on
a
you.
fucking piece of shit. I'm back to being pessimistic. Thanks.
Hell yeah. Fucking A.
All right, should we move on?
Yes.
Mandalorian.
We're just gonna talk about that again. Next is The Grudge.
Again.
Which would make this
The Grudge
sort
again?
of the fourth Grudge film.
Is there 4?
Well, actually, I think there's close to like 6 if you count all the variations. So there's
Right.
the Wanu, or how do you pronounce it? Juon film, which I
Yeah.
think there's only one of. There's The Grudge, which is the American remake of that. There's
Sarah
The
Michelle
Ring,
Gellar one?
which is effectively a knockoff of that.
No, separate.
Is that completely separate? I thought that was
completely
also
separate.
based off of
Completely
Juon.
separate.
Ringu, there's an original
Oh,
Japanese.
sorry, that's right.
remake.
Yeah. So that is separate. All right. So actually, I've bumped
So
that up a
this
bit.
is a second English language remake,
Well, actually,
But
there's
there
a
could be
Grudge 2, 3. I don't think 4, but I
but
do
a
know
second,
there's a
second
Grudge.
remake,
Yes,
which is fairly unusual.
it's
And-
weird, isn't it?
I am the one thing that's weirding me out about this, and it's going to be a major problem for me to overcome, is that I'm missing the J horror aspect. You know, what was so cool about that original Grudge one was it's like they're bringing, that was flavor of the month back then, the early noughties. It was like that J horror thing. You know, it was cool to see Hollywood embracing that.
You're talking
bring-
about Juon or the remake?
the Grudge from the Sarah Michelle Gellar one.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
really liked that one because it brought in those ingredients over from the Japanese horror.
Did that have like the original director at least as a consultant, or
Potentially.
I remember there being some
But
level of
Ring
involvement
2,
in
Ring
it.
2 had the original director from Ringu
Yeah,
come over,
That was
and it was
terrible, right?
awful.
Yeah.
So I
it didn't translate well.
But basically, what I'm trying to say is, I'm not enjoying this because it's missing that edge to it. This is just like a bog standard Conjuring-esque looking kind of.
It doesn't have
film.
the same kind of feeling to it. And there was I remember watching that film and being really fascinated because they were talking about incorporating aspects of Japanese horror culture, and that, like, for example, it's very common in Japanese horror that the good guys don't win, or like that your fate is kind of inevitable with these types of things. So yeah, the Grudge is gonna fucking get you. It's not like you defeated you found how to defeat us with the power of love or something, and then everything goes back to normal. It's like,
Hello, It Chapter 2.
Take
Yeah.
that, Chris Nolan.
it's fucking
Ugh.
your. You both took very different takeaways from that, but I liked that kind of not permanency but inevitability about the horror aspect.
So brutal. It's awesome, and it makes it more mysterious.
But that scene of the girl in the hallway without a jaw, it was haunting for me for ages. I was not okay with that.
But the ending of Ringu is really interesting because it ends on quite a nihilistic, dark tone, but there's almost like this sort of mysterious haunting. It's not really
Ringu
dour
or
and dark.
Juon?
Ringu.
Okay, yeah.
Not really down and like dour. It's kind of like, oh, fuck, it continues going. Holy shit.
Like a ring.
Yeah, oh my God.
I haven't seen either version of The Grudge. I thought this looked pretty cool.
Okay. That seems to be like, for someone that really has been on a horror kick for the last, 12 months.
I just, something about like a naughty's Sarah Michelle Gellar horror movie didn't scream to me. Is that actually worth watching?
It
I
is
would
actually.
love
yeah.
to rewatch it.
All right.
It's got nothing on
The Ring.
The Ring.
So you like both American remakes of those movies. Have you seen the originals?
I've never seen Ju-on.
I've seen Ju-on. I haven't seen Ringu.
Ringu.
I've seen
Ringu many
Ringu
times.
a lot of years ago.
Maybe 2 or 3 times I've seen Ringu.
Okay.
And I love them both for different reasons.
I'll check them out.
Yeah. Got a few horrors.
What did you actually think of the trailer, though? Sam Raimi produced.
Listen, it looked very bog standard to me. I
thought some of the imagery was pretty cool. I actually was getting a little bit of a J horror vibe out of it.
Okay. Maybe we'll see it more in the end product.
Potentially. This seems too polished for it. But I was digging the music, the composition. I'm not sure if the trailer was done by the composers of the film, but if they are, I'm kind of keen. I actually looked them up. The Newton brothers, they did Haunting of Hill House.
Okay, nice.
For that. And also, there's at least one other thing that was of interest recently. Dr. Sleep
cool.
was something that they did as well.
Flanagan.
So, yeah, look, they seem to have some... Ouija, Origin of Evil. So they've worked with Flanagan quite a bit, actually, also with Hush and Before I Wake. Wow.
Major Flanagan collaborators there.
Yeah. So, I mean, I don't know about you guys. The music for Flanagan's stuff has never been like the best thing about what he does.
It's appropriate though.
But it is appropriate. It's form fitting, effectively. So I think that could be interesting.
Yeah.
Should we move on?
Let's move on to number 3.
Keeping in with the Halloween vibe and the horror aspect, we've got Antlers, which we have talked about this before on the podcast.
Just recently, yeah.
This is a new trailer. One that I feel maybe, showed us a little bit too much.
Potentially, but I'm hoping that because nothing stays in my mind anymore,
yeah,
I'm going to forget everything.
Yeah, and it showed us so out of context. It was one of those rhythm-based trailers. It's just kind of throwing shot after shot at you, and it works well on me. I think it looks outstanding.
Great music in this. I thought this was just outstanding, and a great editing job to match the music. This looks cool. This looks really, really cool.
Really interesting concept. But yeah, I just can't shake the fact that I've seen too much of the film, or at least too much of the reveal of the monster.
And it looks a little more atypical to what you'd expect with a Del Toro production credit. Mm-hmm. It's a little less whimsical. Still got that, but a little less whimsical and that sort of...
And there's plenty of room for them to get plenty whimsicals.
We can dial that whimsicalness in.
Yeah. Speaking of, I suppose, whimsical, our next trailer is Little Joe.
Little Joe. I love this. I'm
the Happening too.
Really loving this. I think this is tapping into a lot of interesting things that are sort of going on in society now, and obviously sort of extrapolating that to the nth degree in this film. But this new sort of house plans, this new gadgets, this new lifestyle product coming out, and the potential interesting horror elements here. For this plant comes to your house and it's potentially it is alive, but what's it going to do to you and whatnot. I just think it's very, very interesting, and it sounds a bit more sinister than it's a lot less sinister than I'm making it out to be, but I just thought the presentation was really great. I thought the look of the plants themselves, the whole production design looked great. I was very impressed with this. I was very, very impressed.
My initial reaction was somewhat similar to yours. I thought that there was going to be more of a social commentary, because they basically were saying, we're going to drug people to be happy. And that feels very sci-fi, kind of like take your pills and move on. And it is reflective of something that we seem to be looking for in society now, which is, how do I just be happy? No one wants to work for that happiness. No one wants to actually, kind of find that within themselves. They want a product that is going to get that for them. So I thought that I was like, oh, cool. That it seems like it's going to be more of a commentary on that. And then it took a bit of a typical turn, which I was a bit disappointed with. Like, it's just like, oh, the plant is evil. And maybe I'm not giving the movie enough credit. Like, it's just a trailer. There might be more twists than we've seen. But from what I saw, that's pretty much the crux of it. the plant just turns out to be evil, and
Let's
they're going
see.
to give
Let's see. I think the presentation was sophisticated enough for me to believe that there's potentially more to it than the trailer. There's more to it than what the trailer offers.
I hope so.
So many horror movies have a really interesting kind of allegorical premise and don't necessarily deliver on it. It turns into something much more literal by the end, or just kind of mixed in its messaging.
Yeah.
So hopefully this can really stick the landing, because it was a cool trailer, very intriguing.
Yeah, I really, really, really love that.
I think that if this movie is good, it will be good based on the performances, and the not the vibe, but the atmospheric effects. Not because it's a good plot or well written or anything like that.
If it turns out to be a stealth remake of Little Shop of Horrors, I'm all about it.
Yeah, or an origin story or something like that.
Feed me, Seymour.
Yeah.
There's a remake
I think
happening of that,
That is a remake.
and there's another one
Whoa.
in the pipeline.
Wow.
Anyways,
Don't do it. It's perfect.
are we gonna do question of the week, or are we gonna go into Watchmen review?
Let's do question of the week.
Okay, I'm happy to do that.
If you guys are cool.
Yeah, I've got an answer.
Well, we've got to have a question first before you can give your answer.
No, I want to
Fendo.
give the answer, and I want people to guess the question.
Write in
yeah,
with
go
your
ahead.
question.
Sorry, my bad.
Write in with our question.
We got Halloween coming through,
That's how we should do
and
it.
a few of us love horror films. And here we go. It's a simple one. What is your go-to Halloween horror movies?
Okay, so
Movies.
I don't watch movies seasonally. A lot of people watch Die Hard at Christmas time, or any number of Christmas films, or have films for Halloween. I don't do that. However, if I want to put on or rewatch a horror film, I often go to the Woman in Black as a kind of easy to watch staple. So if I had like a Halloween go-to, it would be that. And I don't necessarily know why. I think it is a really effective and just kind of classic, something's moving in the background type film. And I love that. It doesn't pretend to be any more than it is. It looks good. It delivers on the scares.
It's got Harry Potter in it.
It's got Harry Potter in it.
God damn.
I think that's one of the things that I was so impressed about with this film, which is that, I thought I was going to be so distracted by the fact that it's Daniel Radcliffe. It's the Harry Potter guy. And I think this is the first
did a
film
great
that I
job
had
in that.
watched him outside of that franchise. And within 10 minutes, the first 10 minutes was wonky because they were trying to tell me that I had like this guy had a kid and all that. And I was like, I'm not fucking watching the,
He's
prologue
23.
to Harry Potter or anything like that. But within the first 10 minutes, I was like, I'm on board. Like I completely forgot that this was Harry Potter, and I was on for the journey. So that for me is the kind of go-to if I just want to chuck a horror film on and enjoy it. That's the one to do. Although that might change now with Haunting of Hill House. That might be a one that I'll chuck on again.
Yeah, I really do love The Woman in Black. Benny, do you have any go-tos?
So one I watched a lot as a kid, one of the few scary movies I watched as a kid, one of them was Gremlins, but that's very definitely a Christmas film. The closest I had to like a Halloween staple would have been Hocus Pocus.
Okay.
Oh,
With
okay. Yeah.
Bette Midler and
Yeah. I've never seen that until recently, and I didn't even see it. I was passively watching it. Just stepping in here and there.
Yeah. That is one of the ones from my childhood that I have never really revisited, and I have very, very fond memories of.
You might not have to because are they making a remake?
They're looking at doing something with the property, yeah, because it's one of those ones from our generation that people are always banging on about, even though it's probably awful. Although the lead actor in it, the young man, the kid, I've never seen him in anything else except for this series called Erie, Indiana, which was this weird little short-lived TV show. I think it might have been Canadian even, that was sort of like a Monster of the Week, weird little mystery show, which the kind of thing that I really ate up as a kid, things that were a little too scary for me that I absolutely loved. When I was getting a little older, the first really proper adult scary movie I think I saw and fell in love with was The Descent, directed by Neil Marshall.
What a movie.
Which I could barely get through at the time, but loved every second of it so much and have rewatched so many times.
Which version
because
do you watch if you rewatch
the
it?
only version. There's only one version of this movie. If we got anyone listening in America and you have seen The Descent and you thought, oh, that ending sucked, look up the
The
story
real
behind that
version.
movie, because there's an actual version of that film from the UK that has a few minutes extra on it that is so much better, and the whole movie's ruined without it. It's so bizarre. Anyway, that movie's so rewatchable because there are so many parts. So I'm not even going to discuss the main plot of the film. A bunch of women go spelunking in a cave and things go wrong. Upon rewatching it, there are so many instances where you get let in on what is actually happening in that movie that you never noticed the first time. It's amazing.
Actually, quite similar to The Woman in Black in the way it uses things in the background, little details, but I say more subtly in The Descent.
Yeah, like so hard to see on the crappy TV I had all the way back then.
Just as a quick, because I did look it up, the Hocus Pocus thing will be on Disney Plus, actually, the remake. So it's
There
officially
you
going
can
ahead.
tune in.
There you go.
2020.
Gonna leave that one alone. And then finally, I actually just watched one last night that I think is really worth a look. It is called Wounds. It is on Netflix. It's starring Armie Hammer and Zazie Beetz. It's about a bartender in a small town. One night a fight breaks out at his bar. Someone leaves their phone behind, and then he's at home much later that night, and he starts getting texts on the phone from someone clearly in very mortal distress, saying, "Oh, we shouldn't have fucked with that book. I'm really scared right now." And basically, he finds some very disturbing material on the phone, and it kind of escalates from there. I was
It sounds cool.
so fascinated by this movie. You have to watch it, George. I think you'd be interested. Some of the words have been a bit mixed. I was surprised to see because I loved it.
Okay.
And it really has this cosmic horror kind of Lovecraftian vibe to it.
Nice one.
And also a lot going on under the hood in terms of the themes and everything. It spoke to me like crazy. I really recommend giving this one a go
Wounds.
for Halloween. Wounds.
Wounds.
Yep. I really liked it.
Okay. Wow. So you guys went on lots of different pathways. I mean, like for me, a Halloween film is kind of different to a horror film for me in that I kind of want it to be one of those sort of popcorn. Everyone's kind of having a good time, not only just getting freaked the fuck out. So two for me that I love and I go to is Scream 1 and Final Destination 1. And I also love 3. They were on at the hotel I was staying at recently. One of them came on and I just was like, I love Final Destination. I've got such a soft spot for them. And they're that entertaining kind of just so ridiculous.
Are they still
and
making
Scream
them?
is very, very satirical. No,
The Final Destinations?
there might be,
They
final.
went
Yeah.
for a while. Like there was like
They must have gotten 7 in or something.
least.
I think they had the Final Destination, like all the franchises were doing them, but then they had like a 7 after that as well.
Yeah. Final.
We mean it this time.
it was like Fast and Furious,
Yeah, yeah.
Fast and
Yeah.
Furious, Fast, Furious,
Furious.
Furiously fast.
Fast.
And
Fast
or
Five.
fast.
We are really running out of ideas on how to like combine these two words.
But then I also I feel like my go-to horror is Insidious 1 and Insidious 2. I just really love those two as a little two-hander. And then as a recommend, I think I've mentioned this many times, but Oculus, I rewatched that again recently.
Oculus.
And if you're looking for a horror film, get involved on Oculus. Mike Flanagan, one of his early ones, is a really, really great film.
If you're a horror fan, a horror aficionado who hasn't seen this one and are looking for something that does something a little different, it's not just another haunted house movie. All credit to The Conjuring for being a really good version of that, but it is kind of just another one of those. Check out Oculus because it really blew my mind.
It goes places.
Yeah, it's like a horror movie that takes place after a horror movie.
Yes.
I'm
Immense.
always. It gives me a bit of a chuckle when you talk about Insidious because that for years has been a very contentious film between you and me,
Yeah.
simply because of like the last 20 minutes.
Is that the one with Darth Maul in it?
Yes.
Oh, okay, I have seen it. All right.
Yeah. Have you seen the second one as well?
No.
Because that is an absolutely brilliant.
Well, I never watched
two-hander.
the second one because I thought I hadn't seen the first one, and the second one was the only one that was on streaming. But now I know I have seen the first one.
Rewatch the first one before
Definitely.
you watch the
All
second
right,
one.
all right.
It's
Let's do a
important.
session because I need to rewatch that.
Okay, cool.
And even Insidious 3, which is that the Keys one?
No, that's the last key, but the third one sucks.
Are you confused with Sinister? Because that's the one that has like the death metal bad guy in it.
Yeah.
Isn't it? Okay.
Yes.
Third one I didn't think was terrible.
It wasn't
The
terrible.
Key one I didn't like.
I gave up on the key one.
I didn't see the
Key one was dumb.
It's just like
3 was, they had done a good thing with 2 and they were just trying to capitalize on that, which was, It's not great, but I can forgive them for that.
Yep.
But yeah, 1 and 2 definitely well worth a watch, and like within
And
relatively,
the second one weaves into the first one so nice.
almost
I've
better
heard you
than
guys
any
talk
other
about
film
that.
so nicely.
I've ever seen, and it is.
And those kind of things can irritate me. Oh, he was behind that corner the whole time. You know,
So it's the Back to the
Saw.
Future Part 2 of
Saw
horror movies.
7. There was a guy standing behind that corner who was watching the guy standing behind that corner who was watching a guy standing behind that corner.
Final Destination did that really well, though.
Did they?
With one of them, yeah. I don't know.
I don't know which ones I haven't seen.
Like we said, there may be 7.
One of the
there may
later
be
ones
16.
connects to the very first one.
Yeah.
In a really interesting way.
Okay, cool. Well, hey, there we have it. Question of the week all done. And now into the Watchmen review. I'm going to jet because
I reckon
I
we
don't hear anything about this.
hold him here and make him listen.
No, that's cruel.
Can you guys just give me a little teaser? Was it good?
Yes.
Was it bad?
Still loving it.
Cool.
Very satisfied.
And also Dark Fate next week. What's up?
Terminator.
See ya.
All right. See you, George.
See ya.
Have a good one.
See ya. See ya.
Only 5 films for Final Destination. That's weird. Final
That doesn't
Destination
sound
2,
right.
3, The Final Destination, Final Destination 5.
Oh, there you go.
How bizarre! Wasn't it crazy when?
Okay, so Watchmen.
Watchmen.
So you sound more enthusiastic than last week.
I am. I mean,
It's coming together.
First week was really interesting, but that kind of scared me, right? Because it was like they have posed a lot of questions, they set a lot of things up, and this is really going to come in with how they tie everything together. And look, that concern still is valid for me,
Of course.
but they have maintained a level of quality and intrigue with the second episode. So I'm kind of on board with that.
Yeah, the term appointment viewing is something that I've considered actually having for myself so rarely. Like,
What is appointment viewing?
like, you have to be here at this time every week to watch this show.
Okay, yeah, gotcha.
Like,
Yeah.
clear your schedule at this time. And I've been watching this like the minute it comes out.
Oh, wow.
Because I'm just so keen and excited. And I've watched the first episode twice before I watched this. I've been reading all the supplemental material on the website, of which it seems like they're doing new stuff every week, which is very exciting because it's just so much like the comic, which has a chapter, then in between chapters there's a bunch of stuff.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'm just so immersed in this world right now. I'm reading the comic, the original graphic novel again, and I'm so enthusiastic about the show. I feel like I'm probably blinded to, like, you could be sitting here right now saying the second episode was terrible and nothing happened, and I'd be like, no, what? Like, it's so good. I'm so pumped up for it.
I mean, it's if I were to think about it, there wasn't an awful lot that happened.
No, but the way
I mean,
it
it doesn't matter,
expanded,
right?
the way it expanded what we got from the first episode was, I just pitch perfect. I thought, like,
Yeah.
I loved. So it opens again with a flashback. This time even further back, it's the boy from the Tulsa race riots. His father at war in World War I, getting what is apparently a real flyer that the Germans sent out to or dropped on black soldiers at the time, basically saying, like, why are you fighting for these people? Which is so interesting, and that's what he wrote that note on that we got in the first episode. And it's just leading to some really interesting story avenues. Like, it's tying in with the original in so many interesting ways. We get a very Ryan Murphy style American horror story, American crime story, retelling to the pop culture of the actual Watchmen characters, the Minutemen, and that hooded justice character. It seems is very strongly hinted to be the old man in the wheelchair, based on what you know from the comics and the other material.
Okay.
There's so much going on there that is tying those into each other.
Okay. That surprises me because I thought that there was a scene at the end where he's kind of gone bug-eyed, that he's quite clearly white.
Yes, absolutely. But that's just a TV show.
That's the retelling. Okay.
Because in the
gotcha.
comics, he's one of the few Minutemen who they never find out the identity of. They just have theories about who he might be. So I'm thinking they're doing a lot of interesting stuff there. Not the least of which is the man in the wheelchair, of course, hanged a guy.
Yeah. Which they still haven't given an answer to.
No.
Which I find really fascinating.
Just more questions. And I was one of those viewers back in Lost when they would they would throw out something absolutely ridiculous, and the rest of the world would be like, "What the fuck?" And I'd be like so excited because I just love these mysteries.
Lost is probably a fairly high bar to set for in terms of ridiculousness. I don't necessarily know that I want this to kind of do those kind of leaps.
Well, I just mean what I'm talking about is this episode just ends with a giant magnet coming out of the sky and taking away this character, taking away, and I'm just like floored. I'm like, yes, I'm so excited about it.
That is consistent with this world.
Absolutely, yeah.
Like that could happen.
Like it's perfect. Okay. It's both, you know. Yeah, it's just because it's this crazy alternate reality that's much more technologically advanced than ours. Anyway, so we both enjoyed the episode. Should we talk about Yes.
That's what I want to talk about. Like that's I was like gobsmacked while watching this. Like kind of and again, still don't know the answer.
Exactly. So
we should be a little bit more specific because we haven't actually said anything. So this is the
Jeremy Irons. Is he Adrian Veidt? Is he Dr. Manhattan? The question we posed last week, which they advanced. They didn't offer answers, but they gave so much more information this week. But
so much
you
more
still don't have any answers, which is such a perfect balance.
One thing that was made very clear is that Dr. Manhattan cannot look like a human.
Well,
apparently.
Yeah, so that was something they talked about, was the notion that people on Earth find that notion ridiculous.
Yes.
Regardless of what the actual answer is.
Whether that's true or not. We don't have any actual evidence to say that is true or not.
Of course. And the other thing we found out is that Jeremy Irons pretty much has to be one of those two characters because he's recounting events in his play and using direct dialogue that only those two characters were present for.
Yeah.
Which is the birth of Dr. Manhattan, that whole story, which is, of course, John Osterman would know all about that, but a lot of it would be public record as well. And then there is the line at the end where he says, "Nothing ever really ends," which is from the very end of the comic, which was spoken between just those two. So
I love how they've maintained that level of like, who is he?
Yeah.
Because there's so much evidence to say that he's Dr. Manhattan.
Yeah.
And on Mars. And
I think one of the things clearly seems like Veidt as well.
So one of the things I think that they will do, and I think there's a lot of evidence to suggest this, is that Dr. Manhattan is on Mars, but that everything that we are witnessing is on Mars. So the tomato tree, which is
not right,
not correct.
Yeah.
The clones, all
just disturbing,
fits with a world that Dr. Manhattan could have created, which I think is quite cool.
Now, a cool theory, something I was sort of coming upon completely different to that, is that he's Adrian Veidt and he's working on recreating the creation of Dr. Manhattan, possibly for himself, because he's created this play, which is literally a recreation of that. So maybe he's trying to get that perfect to set it up again, so he can finally become that messianic savior. But another interesting theory I've had is that he's already done that experiment and he has become that, but it is Adrian Veidt, but he's become a Manhattan of some sort, because we're seeing his anniversaries. This episode had his second anniversary. The first episode was his first anniversary. So that is, what is that? Because it's clearly just days going by. So what are they celebrating? If maybe he's just been reborn as this godlike being or something. There's just so many questions and so few answers, but so much information. It's so much fun. It's a playground. I love it.
So how intense was that burning alive scene?
That was amazing. And it was
just
so unsurprising and so shocking at the same time.
Yeah, exactly.
Somehow.
Right. You knew that this is like, he was going to fuck him up without any kind of remorse or anything like that. But at the same time.
Yeah. And the brilliant reveal that they're all clones and just everyone's reaction to it. It's like, I just can't wait to know more.
Yeah.
If you guys out there have any theories on what's going on there, please let me know, because I'm eating it up like crazy.
I would love to know. But ultimately, it's just been us gushing about this. I think that this film, or not film, this TV show so far has posed a lot of questions. It has set an amazing tone. It musically, fantastic.
Beautiful.
Atticus Ross and Trent Reznor are just hitting it out of the park. I don't know. Do you know what the actor's name? The main woman?
Yes, Regina King.
Regina King is fantastic.
Yep.
She is really spectacular in this.
Yeah, and her and a bunch of the other characters are drawing some very interesting parallels to original Watchmen characters from the first story. Like, not to sound like George Lucas, but it all reflects, like it's parallel to the original story. It's going to be really interesting to see the way they run with that or subvert it going on. I love the Don Johnson story advanced a bit more. She found the Ku Klux Klan sheet.
Yeah, which, I mean, seems a bit obvious or overt, so I don't quite trust it yet. Like, I think it's really interesting. Like, I just don't trust anything that is putting forward.
So what do you think happened in the flashback to the White Knight where she gets shot? Because that ends on such a just cliffhanger. Like, she gets shot and passes out.
We don't know who the second, or how she was saved from the second shooter, essentially.
Yeah, so my first thought, of course, was that it was a Judd, that she stabbed Judd in the shoulder, because next time we see him, he's at her hospital bed and he's got like a stab wound or something, or a bullet wound.
That occurred to me, yeah.
Yeah, and there's a thinking of me that perhaps he's sort of a parallel to Ozymandias in the original, whereby he's orchestrated this White Knight. He's maybe not even a white supremacist, but he's just done this to give the police all that power.
So that's exactly what I thought.
Yeah.
I didn't necessarily think that he was the one that had gotten stabbed, but that is a really interesting thought. But I did think that this was something that he had orchestrated in order to, it's the kind of Watchmen 9/11, right? We'll take all your freedoms and enact policies that allow us unvetted access, whatever have you. So that feels like the justification for it, which I think will become revealed. I think ultimately we're pretty set on that this guy is going to be evil. Although, again, or not evil, but like,
complex.
Complex, yeah.
I watched a half-hour interview with Damon Lindelof yesterday on Collider, which was really interesting and really encouraging. I love the way he just gushes about the original property, and it's clear that he has so much love for it. And his history with this project, or just making a Watchmen project of some kind, is really great. And I love the way that he resisted it for many years because he didn't want to do it. He thought the original was so sacrosanct, and then more recently, 2 years ago or so, just came to the conclusion that if he doesn't do it, someone else is going to. And for him to have to watch that and know that he could have made something, he couldn't live with it. So he's had to go ahead and fly in the face of Alan Moore and just do it himself. But the interviewer and a lot of people have gotten review copies of the first 6 episodes, and word is so good on all of that. So they can just nail those final 3 as well. One thing he said, which was very clearly a reference to Lost, is that every good idea they've had, every bit of information they've come up with for this series, they're chucking into this one season as a complete story.
Yeah.
But he's also not closed off to the idea of continuing that afterwards. But I
they
think
want to
that's
make
really
it succinct,
cool.
like a good.
Yeah, because that's what he loves about the original, is that even though it ends and you want it to keep going,
and
it's this one perfect thing.
This is a bit of a not necessarily a segue, but I really love the concept of adding on to an existing property or world, and I think it was best encapsulated by the idea of Tolkien for when he wrote the Lord of the Rings and the Hobbit. His intention was that I have laid down this pretty substantial framework upon which I hope people build and continue, and it's obviously something that his son took up and co-wrote the Silmarillion and added to the lore. And I mean there's so much in that universe now, and I think that's really cool that they're continuing it on with the Amazon series. So I'm completely down with the idea of people expanding on things. I really love it when people do it in a way that is, here's one digestible piece of cinema or books or trilogy or whatever have you. This can be consumed as one thing.
Yeah, and they do it in a way that's
to expand, you can.
And they do it in a way that's respectful but not slavish to the original.
Exactly.
Like, it doesn't just feel like a reboot or a remake. Like, this really feels like he's taking the original and running with the themes and modernizing it and creating just like our generation's version of it.
Yeah, it very
happy
much
with
feels
this
like
thing.
that. Yeah, which is I think is spectacular, and I'm still so interested to see how this world formed into what it was. That to me is like I want to know, because all the flashback scenes are things that actually happened in our world. You know, in real life. I was going to say in our world as opposed to that one, which is equally valid. No, in real life, those are real events that actually happened. And sometime between the 1920s and now, something would have had to diverge significantly enough that, you know, we're witnessing a world that is entirely different.
Might have been the giant squid attacks all over the world.
That might have something to do with it, yes.
A little bit.
But I mean, like, culturally, what changed? Like, how did that affect our culture?
Well,
not just like the technology or anything like that. But like
I think what they've done such a great job of is you look at the American flag and it has just a lot more stars on it than the real US. So the way Dr. Manhattan influenced American superiority over the rest of the world through both technological means and by absolutely demolishing the Vietnam War and making Vietnam itself a state of the US, that I love the way they are in such subtle ways, kind of showing how that has affected the world's greatest superpower into becoming something even bigger and so different than the real world version.
Yeah.
I feel like it could be so on the nose, and some of the stuff is, but in fun ways, like, you know, all the mentions of Robert Redford as the president and everything. I just can't. Have you looked at the website at all?
No, I'm kind of. I mean, one is a time constraint, but the other thing is I sometimes like watching kind of films without the supplementary material. At least upon my first go.
Yeah, well,
there's something different to it, and I think it also helps. You know, if one of us on the podcast delves in, like I haven't read the original comic book or graphic novel either, so I'm coming from this point of like someone that has watched the film and will watch the series.
Yeah,
and
fair enough. To anyone else listening, though, or to you eventually after you watch the whole thing, or whenever you can get around to it, I really recommend it. It is so fascinating. Anything else? I think that about wraps it up.
No, I think that just about does it. Yeah.
Good stuff.
Good stuff. We can mention something that we didn't mention last time, which was just that fucking cow scene.
Oh, man.
How
Yes. Yeah.
Absolutely and utterly brutal that this film appears to be. Like, there was another, like a scene in this one where he was getting the watch back and he like cricked back like the bird fingers. I was like, fuck, that is oddly visceral and, you know, kind of disgusting.
And that cow shootout, it was just meat chunks flying everywhere.
Yeah.
It was outstanding.
Yeah. No, that was pretty spectacular.
All right. Well, we'll be back next week for many things, including the review of episode 3 of Watchmen. So
as well as
tune in for that.
Dark Fate. We'll be watching Terminator Dark Fate.
So a good thing and a thing. Yeah.
Yeah. Busy times.
All right. We'll see you next time.
See you next time. Bye, Ben.
Bye, Connor.
Bye.
Bye, George.
How will we stop the machine? Quickly, start pressing buttons.